Hey everyone, welcome to round 6 of the Trans-Tasman challenge. I'm Kenji, and this is Scott. Say hello, Scott.
Hi, everyone.
So, as we can see, New Zealand's doing pretty well. We're up quite a ways, or I guess New Zealand's up quite a ways. This is going to be a game between Chris, who I know pretty well, and
Victor Tung.
and Victor Tung. Yeah, that's what I thought. Any thoughts on the matchup, Scott?
I've only played Chris twice at our nationals, and I split with him. And I watched him rocket up our ratings quite quickly. At one point a couple of weeks ago, he was rated #1 in the country, so he's doing very well. Victor, I think, is in the top 10 or 11 in Australia, so this should be a pretty good matchup. He's ranked 11th and 3rd in New South Wales. I'm pretty sure I played Victor when the Trans-Tasman in 2018 down here in Dunedin, where I am. And I tried to find my results, and I don't actually remember what they were, but I know I challenged one of his words stupidly, stayed on, but it unfortunately allowed me to play an 8 through it anyway, so
Yeah.
sometimes you get lucky by being dumb.
Well, 5 points is,
That's
5
right.
points.
5 points generally is not that big a penalty.
Yeah. I've seen Victor's name. Victor's not been that prominent, I think, until the last few years. I actually know Chris for a long time. He's from Canada. I'm very familiar with his game a lot more than I am with Victor's, for sure.
Yeah.
It's Victor's. I want to say that Victor's been playing for a while, but that his results have gotten better in the last few years.
Yeah.
It ever since maybe the pandemic or so.
Yeah, a lot of people had some free time to study.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so you might as well use it.
Yep.
I I could work from home. I had a job in Wellington at the time, and my manager said if you can get to your house, you can work from home for the pandemic, and I did. And because of that, now I've got a permanent job with the same organization, working from home.
Nice.
So the pandemic has been good to me in some ways.
I
But
think
it
we're just
looks like
doing some technical
yeah,
difficulties.
they're lighting up the cameras, explaining operations.
Get to break the
Yeah,
fourth wall a little bit.
yeah. Now, for those of you who don't know Chris, he is one of the fastest tile shufflers I've ever seen. You'll put
Yeah,
them
he
on
can be
the
quite frantic.
yeah. So don't when they start blurring, it's not the camera, it's him. Don't worry.
He doesn't shuffle often. He does do a lot of his thought alphabetically, like many of the that's more of a North American thing that you get, where a lot of North American players just they have it alphabetized and they just stare at it. I don't mix tiles pretty much at all, and a lot of it's sort of a habit that you pick up from North America that Chris still has, maybe for better or worse. It generally is a lot better for alphagramming, particularly for finding bingos. Sometimes some players do mix when they're actually trying to find other plays, particularly like parallel plays or disconnected plays or things like that, where the ordering of the tiles matter a lot more.
Yeah, I generally just put my tiles on as they come out of the bag, and as they
Hmm.
come out, I start thinking about words they form at that point. And I'll even put the words on, and then the next tile, move from a 5 to a 6 to hopefully a 7.
Yeah.
And then I have started to study an alphagram,
Hmm.
and I'm finding it really hard because I'm just so used to just random scatterings.
Yeah, a lot of players. Um, it really depends on how you come up through the game. So Chris has spent most of his time playing games on the internet with various other players, like Josh, who was the commentator
Yeah,
from the morning stream. And because of that, you get, the
yeah,
titles always come alphabetically. And so you're just a lot more used to it. Whereas somebody who's much more of a live player who's been, just playing games naturally, they're not going to have the same amount of experience with alphagramming tiles. And so they are probably more likely to shuffle. And as long as you don't really give away too much information when you're shuffling, it's generally fine. Some players do that where they only shuffle when they have like a bingo rack, and that's where they only shuffle when they don't. and people can pick up on that, but I'm not sure how many players pick up on that. And you need to be watching and have a mini game sample to ever make that sort of conclusion. You don't want to just make that conclusion based off one game or one rack.
No, you can't pick up a tell from the first time you play someone
Right.
unless it's really obvious.
Yeah, or unless you have many people who are telling you
It,
what it is. Sometimes in these
yeah.
sorts of events, people do talk. I don't think that happens too much here, but I could be wrong.
Um, you may get tips on, this person likes a closed board, this one likes an open board. This one
Yeah,
is good at bingos, but it's terrible on short words. But
right,
but you're not going to get that much. And even given our proximity to each other, there's not really a whole lot of crossover.
right. I
Not
would
many.
I would think that's true. I would imagine that most of these players haven't played each other so much. At least the
Um,
ones who haven't been playing like a long time. Like I don't think
yeah,
anybody's played Chris a lot, for example.
no, none of the Australians would have played Chris very much, if at all.
Yeah,
The one New Zealander who has, is Joanne Craig, who lives in Sydney.
yeah.
So she's played against them, many of them,
Oh
a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
But
That
in
makes sense.
general, it's this would be this, and uh, giving away our ages, a lot of them may have played in the seniors world champs as well.
Okay, that makes sense.
And of course, our most famous player lives in Malaysia.
Right.
So it'd be nice if he would play once in a while, but he's apparently 8-0 in Spain right now. So domination of another language.
A lot of these people have played a long time. Like,
Yeah,
Bob, for example, has played for 30 years.
Rob
You
Talbot,
know,
Howard
yeah,
Warner, he played.
yep.
Dylan
Joanne's played.
Early's
Dylan's
played.
Dylan's played a long time, but not in this region. But has
He's been here since I want to say 2016 now, so it's gone on 8 or 9 years,
yeah,
7, 8 years.
a while. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right,
it
looks
looks
like
like they're getting started.
yeah.
Victor going first. BC. So lots of high point tiles. Does have the
Uh,
blank, which is extremely useful.
and then
Um,
Hex jumps off. Chef's a nice one,
yeah,
keeping BOX, possibly
you do get
BOX
some
on Hex.
options for actually setting up the X. So you might actually consider playing this off center to try to get some sort of X setup. So maybe putting the H on the star is actually a reasonable option if some people would elect to do that. Victor does not elect to do that.
No,
Um, you can go both ways. There's cases to be made. Usually, the only time that you do that is when you have the X or when you have some sort of direct high point tile, and you do have to vary that because you don't always want to have the X when you do that. You want to
no.
have some sort of varying um, going on. As we see, Chris has DOing
DOing.
lined up. It's also
He's
windage. Think, yeah, he's playing very quickly. Doesn't even
yeah.
think about windage. DOing is better. He does elect to play
Yeah.
it over rather than under. Any thoughts?
No, that's probably what I would have done.
Okay.
Windage. Does it take an S?
Windage does take an S, yeah.
So don't necessarily want to open the triple that this early, especially when
Yeah.
you don't have any idea what's there.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to be much of a case for that. And both players playing very quickly. Victor exchanges without
Which
much thought, almost whatsoever,
no,
before Chris is even drawn.
oh,
I
when,
generally don't like playing that quickly. I didn't even see what he had, to be honest. He did exchange the X too immediately,
and
which I would have at least thought of. You would also like. I'm not sure if there was something to the eye that was like 40ish, even if it kept the Q and burnt the blank. I would have at
yeah,
least thought about that.
and
But
I think it's early. The board's pretty open. I think he's looking to score big, and the 3Es he picked up won't help the cause.
yeah,
Yeah,
there still may be bingos in that. There are
yeah,
good floaters for that. There's the N, the G, the
yeah.
C.
There's
You might be okay here. There are bingos there, I think. The other tiles are quite good. We do see Chris, also a little bit Val heavy. Setting up YEA. Um, that looks good.
and then the chat says there was two tricks for 40, keeping BQ, which burning your blank and keeping BQ, I'm not necessarily a fan of.
I'm okay okay with it,
Eh,
honestly.
all
I'm
right.
not saying I would necessarily do that, but I certainly would
Yeah.
have thought for more than 5 seconds about that.
Yeah.
40 points is 40 points. QB is, minus 10-ish, but you're keeping RT blank.
Yeah.
That's roughly around 30-ish.
Yeah.
It's close.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not. I don't know. Is the real answer.
There
Um,
is no optimal answer. I mean, most times, is there?
well, there's always an optimal answer, but they may be close together.
Oh, that's no. That's right. There's an optimal answer, but there's no perfect answer.
Yeah. Chris still looking at YEA. I'm guessing he's looking for like double doubles to the W or something like that.
Yeah.
But here comes YEA.
32 or so, something like that.
Yep. And I believe Victor has,
Yeah.
a few bingos, but I think he actually has a double double. But not the easiest one to see, especially since
Yeah.
he didn't get to see that line beforehand.
Yeah.
But he does have to find it is a bit difficult to think about EEW here.
Something I'm thinking. Oops. The
And
double W,
plays.
we're looking at rewater.
No, I was thinking like Etagere,
Okay.
making RYA and EEW.
Oh, going across that way. Okay, I was trying
Yeah,
to the EW.
but he
Recreate,
does play
that's
Recreate.
right.
A good score. I do
Yeah.
think that it would be good for Victor to play a little bit slower. Makes commentating a lot easier as well.
Well,
But anyway,
yeah.
Chris with a good bingo rack and lots of floaters.
Yeah.
Does have a few bingo options. As you can see, Chris is mad
Yeah.
shuffling that
Yeah.
we alluded to at the beginning.
And he's got Viragos through the A.
He does. Also has vertigos to the T.
Oh,
Um,
really.
maybe some other options as well. You want to be looking through the DE, for example. Other lines. You just want to make sure that you're finding all the reasonable possible options here.
Yeah. There's nothing
Um,
through the DE.
yeah. It's always important to even look through the bad lines. You've got
Yeah.
plenty of time.
That's
As you
right.
can say, like the game is a quarter over, and both players have 22 minutes.
Oh, Victor picked up the Q and the X again
He did,
after he dumped him back a couple turns ago.
but this is not. He
Yeah.
picked up the U here, and this is not such a bad board for.
No,
Uh,
it's
it's quite reasonable. As you see, Chris does play Viragos here.
yeah. For those of you who are just joining this afternoon session, welcome to the Trans-Tasman Challenge. And the rules we're playing by, the dictionary we're using in this one is Collins CSW 19. So from time to time you may see an expurgated word. So don't panic. They are allowed.
So Victor has multiple high point
Yeah.
tiles. He wants to make it as flexible as possible. So he wants to be able to play both of them. He does have opaque lined up here. The X is usually a really good tile, but it's not so great here. It is okay. There are multiple places to play some of these things. He does have APE lined up if he plays like OX off. So he does have some options if he plays the X now. I
Well,
don't think
Chris
it's
just got the
automatic.
other blank.
Okay,
Opaque
that's
on. That's always a
looking grim
positive.
already.
That's looking
Victor already playing opaque
opaque.
here. He does set
Yeah.
up his X by
Yes.
doing that, so that's a good thing. You definitely want to set up your X in these sorts of spots. Yes, it will get blocked a lot of the time,
Yeah.
but not always.
Really.
And people do overestimate how often that these overlaps happen, and an overlap might happen on the left side too, which will often still give you the X spot. So it is. People get a little bit saying, well, like, oh, well, he's just going to overlap it for 40. I mean, yeah, he might, but they might not. depending on what
Yeah,
the rack is. People don't generally keep W's and Y's and whatnot, so a lot of times they
yeah,
never even have the tile. And even if they do, sometimes there's a better spot for it.
yeah. And Chris potentially has 4 different bonuses using 3 letters,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see either one. And none. Yep. There's
So,
one that plays through the V.
uh-huh.
Let's see if he can.
Usually, in these sorts of spots, the board is so open that what you want to do is you generally want to try
Yeah,
to just clutter space. You don't want to try to like block off lines. You'll never block all the bingo lines here. There's
no.
so many of them. But with this kind of lead, you when you are taking bingos, you just want to say like, okay, we're never, all the quadrants are going to be filled. So you want to actually just kind of actually keep filling them, and you don't really want to go to the edges, but you don't really mind creating more lines because eventually you're just going to run out of lines. In 3 turns, the board will just be like, oh, we played to the entire board and now there's letters everywhere, but it's too cluttered so that it's hard to bingo 2 or 3 turns from now, even if it's easy to bingo in the long run. Um, you can kind of see Victor having his like tiles divided in 3 and 4 like that, and then just sitting there. That is a bit of a tell some of the time.
That's
You generally don't want to do that. I don't think Chris can pick anything off of it now because he doesn't, he doesn't have any experience playing Victor. But you do
no.
want to be a little bit careful when you do that.
I generally keep all 7 together. And I'll put the words and just slide them next to each other, so you can't tell. I'm
Yeah,
not somebody who would put the Q off to the side like it's a leper and leave it away. I just
right.
try to keep them all together so that no slight tells that way.
Yeah, and that is a good idea.
All right. Through, I think the best one I can see for Chris is through the V and with cavities.
Um, I
Actually,
mean, active
oh no,
eyes.
that won't fit. No, I see it.
I don't think he's likely to play that.
No, no,
If I
the
were to guess, I
active
think,
eye. Haven't he? There's actually quite a few through the V with what he's got.
yeah.
But
Generally, he's going to be wanting to play through the.
A
I think through the
or the P.
OPA.
Yeah, and try and
You know,
take those areas out because V's generally are harder to play through.
Yeah, and although I don't think he's that worried about, again, like I think he's much more worried about space than he is scoring. Like I don't think he really cares whether one bingo scores 74 and another bingo scores
No,
76. I don't think that makes even the slightest difference to him at all. I think this is all about positioning. Yeah, if one bingo scores like 10 more points, like
yeah,
if he has a bingo to the, let's say to the P, but it doesn't hit a double, I think he might care about that. But I don't think he's going to want to be doing like active eyes and putting like a huge hook on the bottom of the board that
no,
otherwise wouldn't be there. Like that just doesn't seem like he has inactive lined up. I think he's much more likely to play inactive, even though it scores less. Um, but he's just looking. The bingos here are
yeah,
not easy to find,
no. Yeah,
and he is taking his time. Chris can play an entire game in 2 or 3 minutes, so I'm not worried whatsoever if he spends even 10 minutes on this play. Though I don't think he will. I had no idea how he can see words when he does this, by the way.
when they just blur like that,
Yeah.
it's just practice, I would say.
Yeah, usually when I shuffle a little bit more controlledly. Like usually what I do is I like, let's say, take the tile that I want to see at the beginning. So let's say the C, and I just leave it there. And then I like shuffle the rest of them, or like I take the C and then I like take like TIE, or usually there's like a thought process that goes behind. I'm shuffling it in this way for this reason. When he's doing it this fast, I'm not sure if I know what his thought process is,
Yeah,
but I'm sure he has one.
yeah, and it's not totally random. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And
Um,
there,
the bottom left or the bottom right is a little bit like, and he is seemingly going to play inactive. I'm
yeah,
not surprised that he plays this, actually. It's also worth noting that active eyes Chris is
Yeah,
from North America.
yeah,
Activize is not a word in North America. It's a it's only a word overseas, so he might not be
yeah,
100% sure of it. But given that, also with the positional disadvantage of
yeah,
having that huge hook, I'm not surprised he's
yeah.
foregoing that.
And Activise takes it can be played with both an S and a Z as here as well.
Yeah. Victor, again, playing nearly instantly playing XED.
I mean, a nice opening on top off XED.
Yeah, and he does have good tiles to overlap it on the left side, which is good for scoring. I mean, he is within a bingo now. You do want to create
Yeah,
both of those openings. I don't think it's too likely that opening will stay there, but again, he does have it, and it is good to have openings like that.
Chris has set up train man, but there's no open eye for it.
Yeah. Um,
Given his tiles to block the triple at the top there would be not score particularly well.
yeah. I do think that he's likely to just take block the left side of that whole overlap. Um, if I were to guess.
Something like
Um,
Nam and Knox. There it is.
yep. I might be thinking about remanence, which isn't, I don't think is a word, but um, again, you do want to be looking at other options. You don't want to just do autopiling. There are a lot of lanes still here.
Yep.
Um, like you should be looking at nines, for example. You do want to be looking at like PE, for example. That could be potentially a place that you could find nines some of the time, like permanent or something like that. Almost plays. You want to be looking to make sure that you don't ever have things like if somehow permanent instead of permanent were a word. But he does play Nam.
Yeah.
Um, and again,
Victor wastes no
Victor
time.
plays instantly. I think they're good plays. I'm not seeing any too many things
Yeah,
that are instantly wrong with these plays. I just think that you're not going to go anywhere by speed rushing Chris, and
no,
you really should be looking, even if they do end up being fine, and they probably are fine. But I don't recommend most people play this fast.
no. I generally play fast, and when I started, I played fast. And if I just like Victor there, if I saw it, I played it and went on. Now I've slowed
Yeah,
down and taken a thought. What has my opponent given me?
right.
And that's works out to be a lot better most of the time. Because sometimes there is something that is they've given you that wasn't there.
And if you do think that you can get some sort of time advantage off of somebody, then by all means, this is a reasonable strategy. This is something I have done before, but you're generally not going to be. You generally want to have an idea that your time rush is going to work, and especially Chris is not going to work, and most younger players, especially. I know that that might be a bit of a online
Ageism.
players who have played a lot online are used to playing 3 minute, 5 minute games. So we grew up in the internet generation. Speaking as one of the people who has played a lot of internet games. So if we're used to playing 3 or 5 minutes, we can do that at any point and still play not quite as well, but still pretty well.
Yeah,
So if he's doing it for that reason, it's probably not a good idea. If he just thinks that
yeah,
that's the best option, as we see Chris
yeah.
playing Bergen Net. Um, Not gonna lie, I don't know that.
I I actually think that might be right.
um,
Yep, that's fine.
yep,
A visored
that
helmet that can be fitted or attached to the gorget or neck piece.
yeah. I mean, Burgonet is North American, so I'm not as well versed as Chris is. Chris has gone through all of knows
Yeah,
many more words than I do at this point.
It is an alternative spelling of Burgonet.
Yeah.
And Victor takes the A hook that he set up earlier.
Yep.
He also had Melodias down through the E at the bottom of the board.
Yeah, for much less, but yes. And you can see now that the board is actually dying, not because there's not areas, but because we now are in that situation I was talking about earlier, where it just there's letters everywhere, and all the natural lines are just blocked. Bergonets and Virgos block each other, sort of. There's not really much space on the left. There's not much space anywhere, and we're
I'm,
kind of just out of lines at this point. So Victor's actually going to have a very hard time bingoing again, which he's going to need to do if he wants to win.
I'm just looking. I'm wondering if Amidal's going down into the lower left once the board gets corrected. Might have scored a slightly more and given him put the S on the triple word and to open up a little bit on the bottom.
Yeah, it wouldn't open as much as you might think
No, not much.
Because Chris would block all of that, and once he blocked all of that, the entire bottom right would be dead, and Victor would have to bingo hooking where he did, and that's not an easy place to bingo.
No.
But that still is something that I think that he should have at least looked at, especially since Chris is very likely to kill all of the lines from Brokenet, and then now Victor's going to have to bingo with the hooks from Recreate or the E and Recreate, and those are both not easy to use and don't score that much.
I suspect Chris was wishing that one of those L's when he could drop bolide right next to him.
Yeah, it would be nice, but he's still in a pretty
Uh,
comfortable position, I think.
You can only play what you got.
He is kind of wanting to he's thinking probably about trying to actually play along Virgos and just say okay, if you can bingo on the right side, then you bingo on the right side, and if not, you probably just lose on the spot. So he isn't necessarily going to rush to play on the right side, even though it is by far the most obvious place to play something like bod or solid or
Boils.
something like that. Yeah, thinking something like that, but it is a pretty big sacrifice. So there is something to think about. He could also just say, you know what, Victor, if you can bingo, go ahead and play Oboli or something like that. That would also be an option. So not an automatic play here. I think that there is a fair amount to think about, and he does have time. It soon the plays will get much easier because once there's no lines, then it will be just very obvious. It's like, well, there's one line available. I have to kill it, and then there's not too much to think about. So this is kind of the key turn for the rest of the game. He does play bod. Victor has to open the left side like that, and he does very quickly. He plays an inch. I would have given some thought to Rich just because I really do care about that line that's on the very left side of the board, and I would much rather have the R as a line, even though he is keeping a better leave.
Yeah, keeping that open, you would have many more words end in R than end
Yeah,
in I.
and you have an I, so creating a lane where you have the tile that is also your lane is maybe not the best idea. But again, he is keeping a better leave, and I'm sure that was a big part of his reasoning. He does draw the Z, and if he can play that for a big score, he will be back in the game quite quickly. And there are some decent racks for that, and Chris is actually drawing quite badly here with 3 L's.
Lolitis. Inflammation of boredom.
There is Lilliput's, which is not that far from that.
No, it's not.
Um,
I wonder if Victor at top, something like fair is off the triple under the O.
Quite possibly, probably waifs and not
Wait,
over.
yeah, waste would be better.
Yeah. Chris does play lull, which is trust. I'm sure Chris did not want to do that, but his
No,
rack is just so bad. That is
three.
not what you want to be doing onto a board when you're up by 30 and the board is almost dead.
No.
Uh, he does have Zarf lined up. I but he isn't playing instantly, which is
Which,
good.
which should be a sign to Chris that something's happening over there.
Chris has actually drawn all of his tiles, and yeah, so he is thinking about this, which is good. This is a very good turn to think about. Again, there are several plays now. Waifs. You want to make sure that there's nothing to the O, and I don't see anything to the O. That's great.
Victor's going to count the tiles in the bag.
Yep. You don't even, but there is no need to keep to spend the Z here. I know that when you have the Z, it's kind of intuitive that you want to burn it as fast as possible. You really don't need to, though.
No.
The Z will score well now, but it will also score well later.
If
Whereas,
anybody was watching our second game today, Lawson Su played E, making AE for 2 points.
yep.
And then in the next turn, he dropped the Z next to the E, making DZO for 60 odd.
Yep.
So when he did it at first, I was like, well, that's crazy. And then once we worked out what he was doing, it's like, wow, that was a very nice setup.
Mm-hmm. The Z is really, really flexible. Like it's not like the X. The X usually has one spot, and it's better in that spot than everything else. The Z pretty much scores all the time.
Especially with the addition of ZE.
Yeah. And you can see Victor's thinking about not doing this.
No, that's good.
And then that's good. You could also do Fizz in that spot or Whiz in that spot if he wants to. But I would if he doesn't want to play Waifs for whatever reason, he does seem to have Waifs lined up now.
In the
which
chat,
is
somebody's suggesting Wazir. In the top right.
Oh yeah, in the top right, yeah.
There's Waifs.
I think I would prefer Waifs to Wazir.
So would I.
It's pretty close though. If he wants to play Wazir, I'd be okay with that too. He's taking a lead with whatever he's doing here.
Yeah. So RZ versus an FS leave.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd prefer RZ personally.
I can't see the pool. Is there another? Does Chris have the case S?
Yes, he does.
So Chris should actually be thinking about joint here, very, very seriously. This is a very, very good spot for something like joint.
Yeah. Hopefully, Chris does see something like that.
You don't really want to be hanging that S, but joint is almost impossible to block well. He does have like a good rack for it, and you're going to be able to get a lot more off of joints and putting the S than you're playing joints right away. So he should really be thinking pretty hard about that. It is something that I think not enough players do. I think a lot of players would just play joints instantly here. But I think that you should be giving some serious thought to just not playing the S here. Because most of the time, Victor's going to try to block, and when he does try to block, he's not going to be able to block well enough.
No.
So he'll have to sacrifice points, and Chris will still get to score like 50 or 60. And if he doesn't block, Chris might be able to score even more than that.
Yeah, and looking at the pool from Chris's view up in the upper left of our screen,
it's
not the most attractive pool as well.
Yeah. But it is attractive for scoring after a play like joints. So I would actually, the more I think about this, the more I really, really am liking just playing joint here.
Joint.
Because even blocking it is going to be difficult. Recreate blocks a lot of the blocking plays.
Yeah.
So a lot of the plays are going to be like, if you're Victor, for example, with that rack, what are you going to play? Like UR for 4 that still leaves RS plays? Like, They're horrible.
And after joint and he plays UR, that's the bag is empty as well, I believe, if I counted
Right.
right.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
Joint just wins, and he has it set up, and you will notice that the S is not over there. It's just
no.
Joint by itself. Um, and I think I like this.
Yeah.
Um,
That would be a big tell that he has the S as well.
oh yeah, but I mean he may as well just show the S to Victor. But what's
Yeah.
Victor gonna do about it?
That's right. It'll be interesting to see Victor's body language if he just looks and realizes what just happened.
Yeah. I mean, Victor's rack is especially bad here, but even if Victor
Yeah.
had a better rack, I think it would still be pretty difficult to do something. Like, yeah, some of the time Victor will have an O, and then he'll get to play like OR instead to the right, which will block it a little bit, but he's scoring 4 points, and Chris still gets SRI for 45.
Yeah.
And that's still more than good enough with almost every rack. So, like, even basically Chris doesn't lose after joint unless Victor like bingos to the eye or something
Something
ridiculous like that,
magical.
and Chris is going to lose to that no matter what. And I don't see. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that there aren't things that could go wrong, but I think that that's the play here. You can see Chris is
Yeah.
taking a very long time, and here it
Yeah.
comes. Yep. And let's see Victor's response. He doesn't seem to actually respond very much here.
No.
He might get more frustrated as he realizes what his options are.
Yeah.
He does have like RUT, I guess, that sort of blocks it, but
Yeah, but then you could play something like Pits.
yeah. I mean, this game's just lost, honestly.
Was he setting up Scorpion there now as well?
Uh,
And
through the
there's no open sea, but that's
yeah,
just the way
okay,
he set
yeah,
it up. I was like, oh, it's Scorpion.
yeah. I mean, he has positron through recreates through the T and joints as well. If it just stays open, I'm sure it won't. But
Mm,
if he doesn't want to, for some reason, doesn't want to use
no,
the S hook, or if like Victor just plays and
no,
empties the bag, actually, that's probably what you should do.
if he finds it, yes.
Yeah.
He's probably
Although it
more,
doesn't even score as much as the S hook plays,
but it ends the game.
but it ends the game. Yeah.
If there was an open end, there'd be, oh no, not quite spoonerism.
There might be some. He's not that far from some interesting paper plays as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Victor's kind of seeing that from Victor's perspective, I'm guessing you're actually just kind of hoping that the P is in the bag, but even if the P is in the bag, then what?
There's
Um,
2 in the bag, so there's 36 possible outcomes, so that'll be reduced with the triple O's. You know Chris has an O for sure. That's all you know.
yeah. Chris doesn't actually always have the S here.
No,
Um,
but
there are
it's
times that he doesn't have it, where he thinks this is the only way he could win if he has, let's say, something really bad, although he has it a lot.
yeah. Josh Sokol in the chat just saw positron as well and scores looks like 3 less than joints.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think he meant joints is greater than 73, not less than Josh. That's what the oops was for.
Victor's still thinking he
Yeah,
should be spending all of his time here.
yeah, he's got plenty of it.
Yeah, you generally are looking for like, okay, if I draw like OE, which is which is what's in the bag, or
Right.
good tiles that are not the S, how can I win if I draw those specific things? So he's trying to look for some like Z draw, big Z draw that will maybe try to also outrun this, but I don't think there is anything.
No, he's
Plays
leaving one in the bag.
Vape. I wonder why. I'm interested in what his thought process is here. Um,
He can, if Chris bingos, he can't be thinking, well, I've got a chance.
well, yeah, it is interesting to see whether Chris is going to play
Yeah,
Positron now or if he's going to play um, something else. I think you probably should just took the S here, but I could be wrong about that.
something like Snoop.
Yeah, that looks good. You want to make sure that if you draw an like the worst tiles that you have an out. So the worst tiles here are like the U, the K, and the Z and the O. So you want to make
Yeah,
sure that whatever you keep, you have decent plays with all of those tiles.
yeah. There are at least two places for the for the Z or Z.
Yeah,
K. I'm just looking for single two letters. There's KO in the middle of the board.
right.
There's sick as well up that way.
He has peons lined up, which I think is
Pions.
probably gonna hit all of those tiles pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see, you have KOR, you have OUR, you have ZOR, which is gonna, which has multiple outs. He should be fine, I think, no matter what here. I don't really see any potential hurdles. I think, regardless of what he plays. Uh, yeah, even if he played Positron, yeah, all of the tiles there have multiple outs, I think. So, yeah, Chris is fine, I think, no matter what. Here comes, yeah, here
Pions.
comes Pions. And he will draw the O. Oh, wait, does he draw the O? Yeah, he
Yeah,
draws
he
the
drew the
O.
O.
And Zerk comes down.
Yeah.
Might be better off playing Zek, actually, because ROO is on the left is
Uh,
going to score a lot more
yeah,
after
that's gonna
Zerk.
score a
Zek.
lot more.
He does pick it up. Like, he hasn't played, Zek is basically the same. It's two less, I guess four less because the R is still on your rack, but it's going to give Chris quite a bit less.
Yeah.
There may be other plays as well, but it is going to be academic here. Oh, he plays Zerk up
Yep.
there.
Making sick with hey,
Yeah.
that's fine.
And Chris is going to go out.
Yeah. Just spend a minute looking for the maximum score you can squeeze.
Yeah, I should be a lot better at trying to actually find all of these. A lot of players don't actually look for the highest scoring play for very long in these sorts of
No,
situations. But
just end the game.
yeah, it depends on how tired you are. um, how whether you feel satisfied with what you see. Um, like that's
That's
10. So if you find something that's like two more, it's not a big deal. But if you're missing something that's like 10 more, then I guess that's more problematic.
yeah. And Chris will pick up 6 from Tut off of Victor's rack.
Yep. And another
Hey,
win for New Zealand.
and nice
New
high scoring
Zealand.
match here.
Yep.
Yes, another win.
Some interesting plays this game. I think Joint was definitely one of the more interesting plays. You know, you had Opaque was interesting.
Yes.
Inactive was interesting.
Yes, Chris spent a lot of time trying to decide what to play when he played inactive.
Yeah. Chris is generally a more defensive player than most. Um, certainly more than I am. Um,
Yep. Okay.
but he's always been playing on the more defensive side. That's just the way that he likes to play. Uh, he used to do it because he said that he didn't know any words. Then he learned a bunch of words, but he's kind of kept the same style.
No, I'm definitely more. prefer an open gunslinging.
Hmm. And there's something to
Yeah,
be said about that
yeah,
too.
yeah.
You need to, if you're going to play an open style, you need to not miss words,
No,
and
that's
because it's generally a little bit more costly. But there's advantages to both. It's mostly based on personal preference. It is some of the more technical skills at the highest level do vary quite a bit, um, and there is something to be said for the fact that I think players are more defensive when many of your players are going to be that you're playing against are also going to have certain styles that they may be more used to. So you should be willing to play both. You shouldn't just stick to one all of the time. And Chris doesn't
no.
stick to.
I,
Chris
I,
does know how to play both. I'm not saying that he. Most players I think at this level actually know how to play both at least reasonably well.
yeah. In the chat, Josh recommended res after joint, making earn an ET,
Oh
which would have made it seriously more exciting on that end.
yeah, did he have that? I don't think he had that.
Oh,
I think that was just a possibility. No, because he drew the E. He didn't have the E.
no, he didn't. You're right. He had Turk VTZ after joint.
Yeah,
So it's
but
one of
that
those
would have blocked pretty well.
that would have really taken care of the S.
Yeah, the pool would have been really bad from Chris's point of view if the series was joint and res, and it would have emptied the bag. So
Yeah,
Chris is still heavily favored after that sequence, but that is kind of the disaster, I guess.
yeah,
Um, if Chris were to draw, I don't know, TTVU or something like that,
yeah.
I think even then he might still be okay. Actually,
Yeah. Oh, it
like
looks like he's smiling. He looks like a happy winner there.
he's talking to
Yeah,
somebody, not sure
yeah,
who, but
yeah.
Hello?
Hey,
Hi, Scott. Hi,
hi, Scott,
Scott.
Chris.
Hey,
Hi,
Kenji.
Chris.
Or hey, yeah, hey, Scott.
Yep. Well done on that win there, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my first win on stream, and I've been streamed twice before, and both of those Kenji has commentated, and I've lost both. I think that was 2014 U.S. Nationals and 2018 Canadian Nationals. So I'm happy to win my first game on stream ever.
Oh, congratulations. Your bad luck charm has now been reversed.
Yeah.
You can't just.
Oh, hi, Kenji.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you, yeah, so I know I missed catives, but I was in a situation where, I was in a situation where I was like up 100, and I just didn't want a phony there. I thought my win percentage was high enough to just take the word I was sure of.
yep. There's nothing wrong with playing 100% certain as opposed to the chance of having it taken and coming back.
Yeah,
Now we were both admiring the joint play,
yeah.
and then we were wondering.
Kenji, do you remember the 2014 setup, a very similar one, where I played something down there and it didn't work out against Colton Kaler? I don't know if you remember
Uh,
that, but I'm happy this one worked out.
I think we've got Kenji muted because we're having
Oh yeah. Okay.
my difficulties with that.
Yeah.
Now, when you played Pions, did you consider positron through the T?
Yeah. I mean, Victor told me about that after the game, but
Yeah.
I just figured like peons want 100%. Like I saw if I drew the via Vor and I've Rivo, like it's like I can't lose, so I might as well just not think and take the points and win. So I wasn't like it didn't cost me any win percentage.
No. Win first, spread second.
Yeah, that's definitely my tournament style. So yeah.
Yeah. And they wins come first, and might as well take them. And in a team event,
Yeah,
the win's going to help
exactly.
the team as well.
Well, I started 1-2, but I'm 4-2 now, and I see that New Zealand's crushing, and we haven't lost a game on stream, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, hopefully it
We're
continues. My other
we're
teammates.
still waiting for the full round 6 results to come up.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we know after round 5, New Zealand's up 40-20.
yeah, cool. You want to ask me anything else about the game?
Um, what? Now we were wondering about DIing versus windage as well early on. So,
Oh, I, I I think I just played super fast. I didn't even see windage, but I wouldn't have done it because it takes an S, right?
that's right.
So yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
thought.
they're definitely 100%. I'm not doing it even if I see it. But I just saw DIing. I'm like, it's the best play. I'm playing it immediately.
Yeah. And then just trying to think what else we were wondering about in there. Oh, when Victor played Waifs, we were looking at that spot early on, and he
Yeah,
kept
I mean, like
RZ. So it's like,
he
well, that
put he put Zarf in there first, and
yeah.
I mean like, that would have been tricky because he would have kept an S. I couldn't play joint. I was thinking of like TP and Zep, but that I don't know. Like keeping that J, I think I lose a lot of the time if he does that. I don't know, but worked out. So,
It worked out for you.
yeah,
That's what we're hoping.
cool.
And just a little about you here.
Oh yeah,
You've
yeah,
been
yeah.
in.
Do you want me to?
I will. I'm sorry, my cat's coming and joined the commentary right now and is getting tangled in my headphones.
No problem.
Um, as a news there, we're very happy to have someone like you who's done a whole lot promoting Scrabble for New Zealand and
Thank
bringing
you.
and streaming, and
Yeah.
you and Alex. I mean, they've been absolutely great for the game,
Yeah, I mean,
and we appreciate that immensely.
yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. I mean, it's not just me and Alex. It's also people like Josh Greenway, Will Anderson, Josh Castellano, Shauna Bossy, who you'll see later on, and then also just the executive committee, which I'm a part of, but like I'm a newcomer. Everyone here, like they paid like $1,500 for all this equipment. I mean, the computer is actually like 4,000, and it's just like yeah, it's all good. Alex, time to wrap it up. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Keep watching. Thanks.
Okay. So that was game 6, and as Chris said, New Zealand's won every single game on the stream.
Yep.
It's just always, not that I'm biased in any way whatsoever, is a good thing for us, because historically Australia's dominated in the Trans-Tasman, so we're quite happy to actually see it balancing out. But yes, Chris has come here with his partner Tara, and it's been just really good for the game.